All right, everyone. I am Zach Hughes, and this is Hot Topics. A pleasant evening to everybody. Tonight, we are going to try this again. Uh, we are going to pay tribute to Liz Chase, and then we are going to get into a segment that I've started envisioning and was inspired called They Have Lives Too. And then we're going to talk about self care. And then we're going to look at Bill H.91, see where that is, and a little more. Folks, you'll notice that we are in a new platform tonight. And hi, Tasha, how you doing? We are in a new platform tonight, away from Facebook. However, that doesn't stop the Facebook page, which we will be still maintaining. And I am pulling that up right now. We're going to try to pull that up. There it is. Sorry, little technology thing there. Hopefully that works. Um, yeah, hopefully I'll get you over there. And if you haven't already, go over there and give me a like or a follow. And okay, let's jump right in. Um, let's see what's going on here. Okay. Um, Sorry about that. I was just looking over at the chat. Okay, folks. I'd like to start out by paying tribute to a well liked community member in the homeless community and psychiatric survivor community. Her name was Liz Chase. Um, there was an accident a couple weeks ago, and she ended up passing away. And it's been really difficult for folks who've known her. And I just wanted to take a moment and kind of pay tribute to her. I'm highly appreciative to everyone um, who I've connected with around this, and we've been able to come together. And another way had a service on Friday, and thank you, Tasha, for that. She's telling me that works. Um, but we had another way was gracious enough to host a service for Liz, and we did. It was a very nice service, um, and Liz was just very. I really thought it was a privilege to work with her. Anyone who we work with, it's a privilege to actually work with. I think that's often forgotten. She had a caring spirit, and she wanted to take care of others first before herself. Um, and just remember these times with Liz. She had bad days and good days, just like the rest of us. Um, and It was very difficult to hear this news from me 2 weeks ago and for a bunch of other folks. Um, but we all came together. Um, and, I think that that's the important part, to provide support to each other. And we continue to do that. But she was just, I remember I had the privilege to work with her, work, um, you know, beside her, and she just was a very kind person. And yes, she had rough days. And I just wanted to make a note comment that that the picture that was used by Another Way showed her in a good day, very good day for her. And I think the person who saw this picture misunderstood it. And I just wanted to say that this picture was on her good day. She just It looked like something she was being very humorous, and I want to just acknowledge that this has been very rough for folks, and that some of us have had to actually continue to work in jobs through this. So I wanted to thank those folks, particularly in the peer positions, who have to continue to do the work and while trying to take care of themselves and take care of each other. I think it's an important thing. And um, Liz, I just want to say to you, rest in peace and power. The work will go on. And don't worry, we can take it from here. Rest in peace and power, Liz. Okay. I think, what did I say we were going to? Oh, yes. I wanted to talk about a segment that I really think kind of connects sort of with what we're going through with Liz's passing. Um, and I always learn it at the hardest times. But entitled this idea and inspiration, They Have Lives Too. And whether it's people had lives before they became homeless, or they continue to live their lives the way they want to live them. Um, I think that is often lost in this work. We're just trying to help people out, and we forget that, first of all, it is a privilege to be let into someone's life. Um, they don't have to let you in. Um, and and then the other thing is, once you are in there, you sometimes you can see, if you're looking carefully enough, you can see how they're living their life, and they may tell you how they lived life before. I've heard from people over the years that they used to lead successful lives, and had housing, and then they lost their housing and lost everything, and that's why they ended up where they are. This isn't, you know, this is where we need to look. We need to look at the lives that folks had before this happened for them. And so they have lives too, is really important to think about as we go into, this thing. And what kind of inspired me about it was, one day I was out and about, and I happened to see that this gentleman was, it was a little thing really, but it really had an impact on me that, this gentleman liked to read books, and he had a book, and I just remember commenting to his partner about that, and oh, he likes to read books too, and you don't really realize what lives people have, what hobbies they have, what as inspirations they have, because maybe I'm trying to work with them to get them on the right path, and that's kind of not always seen right away. Um, but I think that if we can look at it in that light of they have lives too, I think we can kind of steer away from the stigma of, well, they need jobs, and they need to do this and they need to do that. Um, I think if you spend a day doing this work, and it was just, for me, I have done the work for, intensely. I've started to do the work in 2022 at the Overflow Shelter. Before that, my work was sort of an outreach, limited contact. But when I started doing the Overflow work, I spent 4 hours per shift with folks, and I got to know them. And it was a little different for me. And when I went to work another job, my current, you know, at my current employer, I when I started working there, I started to see these things, of people having lives, and that they just needed, they just need some support to help them along. Um, and it's just really interesting to be having limited contact with somebody. As I said, my work started out sort of in the peer support world only. So I didn't really do much with homeless housing until about 2011. Um, and then in 2022, it kind of got more intense. So, I mean, that's the thing. Um, and what's really interesting is if you were to spend a day, even on outreach, or if you were to spend a time inside of a drop-in center or a overflow shelter, you would see a difference, or a warming space. Um, and yeah, I mean, um, it just was an inspiration for me to come up with this idea of they have lives too. Um, and I haven't really. Maybe I should start to write about it because it just came to me after I saw that gentleman with the book. I started to put things together a little bit, and then I recently came up with this they have lives too thing. And I thought I'd just kind of talk about it here. And, you know, but I also want to go away from it tonight with the idea that it is an absolute privilege to be in someone's life, whether they're homeless or not. If you're friends with somebody, remember that. Don't take that for granted. But particularly when you're working with people who are in the homeless or a vulnerable community, um, you know, it is a absolute privilege to be part of their life. And that's kind of what when I go to services, like I've been with Liz and other folks, you do learn about their lives. You do learn about their lives prior to um, their homelessness. And that is different, especially if one has not been homeless, um, and you kind of look at that and you say, "Wow," or "How did that happen?" Really, and I think that's the hard part for folks, and that's why there is this stigma that occurs. This idea that folks can automatically get jobs and do all that. It's just not doable in that way. But I just wanted to kind of start talking about this. We'll continue this conversation next time. Okay, and I'm really hoping it stays with me tonight. The show, I mean the stream. Last week it did. Okay, next, I want to jump into during this time. How does one take care of themselves? Self-care. Um, how does one take care of themselves during a time like this? Especially folks who are working in those positions where they're expected to continue to work after hearing, um, of a death. And how does that work? And how does one take care of themselves? So, yeah, that. Um, First of all, I have to say that I'm just going to talk about me, um, and if anyone has experience on this, they can certainly put it down in the chat and go from there. But I have to say, over the years, it's been an evolution for me, from being young, and kind of just acknowledging passing to actually having to go through the grief process. If I'm in a job somewhere and I get the bad news, like happened in 2016, countless times, but the one time I want to relate to was that I was working. as a manager for a crisis bed. I was acting as the manager at that time, and we didn't have any other peer managers available for this position at that time. So I had to run this crisis bed. Had a staff. That's not the issue. You're expected to lead and continue to do the work. And I remember getting bad news. One of my co-facilitators in another position I held at the same agency had passed away, and I got that phone call. And I remember um, feeling like I was on the bridge of a submarine or a ship, and one of my crewmates had passed away, and I was getting that message. Um, I remember my coworker, who was my second in command at the other job that was co-facilitating for this phone line. I said to me, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "We're going to keep going." And that's kind of hollow. It feels absolutely hollow, right? You just and you sit there and you say, "How am I supposed to do this?" But I had a job to still do. So what did I have to do? I had to put that grief in a file drawer temporarily. And I had to say, I'm temporarily going to put that in a file drawer, and I will address it as soon as I can. Okay. But my, it ended up being that it took me a while to address it. And we did have a service for that individual, but I was so upset. But I was expected to still carry out the job. Can you imagine that? And so I kind of look at it today. It was 2016 was a rough year for me, death-wise, people who died in 2016. And but today, um, what I have really realized is that I do need to address that grief, and not only do I need to address it, you have to you put it in a file drawer temporarily, but after you're done doing your work, you really do need to address that grief. You need to open the file drawer and allow it to blow through. Take care of yourself. And I did see a colleague today, and I urged them to continue to take care of themselves. Um, and if they needed anything, to reach out to me, a colleague in my current job. Um, and I think that's really important. Self-care, in this time, everybody, by the way, grieves differently. So I want to caution people as they go out there, and they, don't be surprised if somebody might be grieving differently than you are. It happens. And there are different ways people grieve. So remember that as you go through your self-care process, um, you know, and obviously, reach out and do things. So how do you do that? How does one take care of themselves? And that's the important part. So it could be as simple as, reaching out to a friend, journaling, things like that, taking a walk, doing what you got to do, um, asking for help. Um, and that's fine too. I think it's important to understand that in our positions of work and in our positions in life, we need to take care of ourselves as well. And there may be limitations to our abilities, like maybe some of us want to go down to the ocean and just get away, and that's not possible. Um, some of us want to run away, and it's not possible. Um, so I just wanted to point out that that's just an important thing to, um, take care of yourself. So how are you, how do you take care of yourself? And feel free to share that in our chat. And yeah, I mean, it's just really important with self-care. It's It's something that people forget to do. Um, and a lot of it will come down to, well, I had to go to work, and so I put the feelings in a file drawer somewhere, and I left them there, or I left them on a shelf. Don't leave them on a shelf. Pull them back out after you are done with that work. And in 2016, it actually took me a while longer to pull them out of the file drawer, unfortunately. But today, I would definitely pull them out of the file drawer sooner, because I think it's really just something of, so what happened here, um, is, just really something of an evolution for me as to how I dealt with it. And everyone deals with this sort of thing differently. So just remember that, and remember you're not alone, even though it may seem it. Okay, and I encourage you to continue your self care journey. And we're going to talk about self care again on a future show. So maybe if you want to share how you um, take care of yourself, feel free to do that. You can do that in the chat. I believe it will still be available. I'm not sure if it'll be available after the show, but I hope it will be. Um, and if it's not, we'll find another way to get that done. But I did want to just say self-care is really important here. Let me just check the chat and see what we have out there tonight. So where it's pretty quiet. This is a new platform for the show. Because I wanted to do something a bit different, we are going to keep that Facebook link for a while. I put that in the chat, and we'll see how that goes. I was thinking about doing a website at some point, and but I wanted to move over here because Facebook is taking down videos after 30 days now, so I need to, I'm still working on that. Okay, we are going to jump into another segment just real quick. I won't go too deep into it. I've talked about this to nauseam, and I guess why not? Um, okay, so an update on H91. What is H91? And I think I accidentally called it S91 last week. Actually, S91 has some similar issues going with it, but it doesn't have to do with homelessness. That S91 has to do with, from what I saw, tenant rights, and I have to take a look at that at some point. But H91 has to do with a change in the hotel program. And it was passed by the Senate. I believe it's in a conference committee right now, and I will double check that or keep an eye on that. But it was passed by the Senate, by the Vermont Senate. It had passed the House, where it had originated. So what is it exactly? It is simply this. So from what I understand, right now, we have a hotel program that has been around for a while. Don't let the media fool you and say it was for the emergency pandemic hotel. We're shutting it down. This actual hotel program has been around for a while. It did, have some relaxed rules during the pandemic. So from like 2020 to 2024, it had a lot of relaxed rules to it, and for good reason. And then, but currently the system goes like this. Right now, we are people get 80 days a year. They have to meet certain criteria to get into the hotel program. But they get 80 days a year, with the exception of between December and March, at the end of March. Okay, that doesn't count um, towards your 80 days. But right now, this year, the um, the legislature attempted to extend that winter program to the end of June through legislation, which the governor vetoed. Um, so, on the other side of this, uh, so since that was vetoed, the governor still said, "Yep, I still want to help. We still want to help the most vulnerable folks." So he signed an executive order with some specific criteria to do that, um, including um, not including controversial measure. Actually, that was in the legislation, but um, he did that executive order. But on the other side of it, the House decided to start working on an alternative. So H91 would do this. Instead of the state economic services doing the day-to-day stuff, like you call to get renewed and all that jazz, um, the community action agencies or community action programs, CAPS, um, would assume that role with state oversight. Now, the governor had indicated, well, wait a minute, I'm going to step back a little bit. So the CAPS would be able to um, come up with alternatives to the hotels. The idea is to get away from the hotels. Um, but in my view, the hotels are still going to have to happen in some way or form a little bit. If this is successful, I still envision the hotel still being kind of a backup, even though there's an envisionment of it going away. So the caps kind of came back when this bill was being played with and said, hey, we need more time to roll this out. Or are you kidding me? And this is because this isn't the first time this was talked about. The idea of caps. So, what are caps? So, caps are not the hotel caps that you're used to hearing about. Caps are the community action programs or community action agencies. So, for instance, in Washington County and a couple of the counties here, I think it's going to be Capstone. And in other areas, they have their own community action agencies, but they're different names. So basically, what's going to happen is the caps are going to get a year to roll this out. We're probably looking at another season of hotels as advertised, meaning that you have your 80 days and you would be able to use them. Um, and so that's going to probably be around for another year. Now, the governor has not decided yet whether he's going to sign H91. He's a little miffed about the hotels still. He's worried that they'll still be used, and there's got to be, there's something there going on. The governor has not indicated whether he will sign or not. If he does not sign, this bill will undoubtedly die. If he does sign, the year of caps planning and all that would go into play. And the current hotel program would be around until next July, most likely. But I am grateful to hear that the caps are going to have a year to figure it out. I was really concerned. I think the caps were concerned as well around capacity. I'm not even sure that this will be a good thing, but the legislature feels this needs to be done more on a local level. The state wants to kind of get away from doing that day-to-day thing. And then there's that long-term goal that I've talked about of getting away from hotels in general. Um, Instead of putting everybody in hotels, we need to look at alternatives. And I talked about this. I know we're going to talk about it to nauseum, but we need to talk about other options, because hotels are not going to cut the mustard here. Um, so, how about some money to, um, look at transitional housing, stuff like that. And we talked about this on many shows. I've talked about it. And in one show I had some friends and we were throwing around numbers. And then some of the people I work with were even going as far as, can we go to the legislators and talk to them about some of our ideas? And then you'll hear the people who say hotels kind of save us. But my problem with I like the hotels. The problem with it is that if we're used to something, it's kind of hard to pull us away from it. So people get this nice, cushy feeling that the person that they're working with is in a hotel. And I think this is why we really didn't have the conversations that we needed to have during COVID. We had 4 years at least, and I know I'm going to get some disagreement about it. Someone's going to say, oh, no, we did try. The problem I have with this is we didn't get those conversations, in my view, because, COVID, during COVID, we had folks in hotels and it felt people were safe. So there's no real rush. And that's how I'm feeling. It doesn't mean that's what happened. I think the reality of it is also is going to take investments. And I don't know, in our current political climate around the United States at the federal level, and even here in Vermont, I don't know how that's going to sugar out. We don't know. And I just have to say that so that's what the H91 envisions to do. There is concern from around H91 because there's ways of effectively doing service with people that might be taken away. Stuff like that. But in general, it's the legislature's response so far to this. The governor has indicated his dislike of using the hotels. And if you've been on social media posts, generally there are uninformed people who don't like the hotels being used either, and have so many comments that I won't go into them here. So what are we looking at in closure to H91 tonight? What are we looking at next? Because one of the things I meant to talk about is there's another looming hotel exodus that's going to occur. That is going to occur on or about July 1. These were folks who were extended by governor's executive order to be able to stay in hotels. This was a narrow population of folks, but that ends on July 1. Now, if folks have 80 days that they can use that they didn't use because maybe they entered the winter program in December, they can use that 80 days, or in my view, might consider banking that 80 days. And here's why: because the 80 days is once that's used, you have to wait that full year. And there's just been a lot of different confusion around this executive order going on. Some people have been pulled out of their rooms without proper notice, even though there was a lawsuit to this effect. There was a settlement around notice of pulling people out, but there are so many little nuances that you'd have to keep on top of because these rules keep changing. So just to give you let me just check the chat on the talk over people. I'm not seeing very much chatter out there right now, but The issue with let me think. I just lost my train of thought. So let's say one of the provisions when you're in a hotel is if they find you a place or you find a place, you have to take it. There's no, so what I've seen happening is that people have been found places in shelters suddenly and called and told they need to pack their bags and they're going to the nearest shelter that they've arranged. So that the state has arranged. And yeah, exemption. You have that doctor exemption. Nope. You're still going to the shelter. See you later. Is that right? Probably, probably not. But in that provision somewhere, there is language, in the statute, around the original program of that 80 days of if a place is found, you have to take it. And what happens if you don't take it? Well, they don't help you for a little while. Okay. And so one of the controversial languages that were added that had some of disability advocates like myself worried about is that, if, like, for instance, I was in a hotel and I'm medically vulnerable, and I talked about this last week, but I just want to reiterate it because it's so controversial for us in the disability community. If you are in a hotel and you're medically vulnerable and they suddenly find you a nursing home bed, you have to go to the nursing home or they won't help you for a little bit. That can be anywhere from 30 days to 6 months, I believe. And they mean business. So, and yeah, you get your fair hearing, sure. But it was just very controversial. And why is that controversial? Someone says, I mean, well, you're medically vulnerable, wouldn't you want to be in a nurse? The issue for me is that indicated? Is that level of service indicated? I'm not a doctor. Neither is the people making, to my knowledge, this type of decision where, uh, you know, going into nursing home, this is not, it may not be indicated, as they say in the medical field. And the reason I say that is just, and who's paying for that bed? Okay. And so that is actually who is paying for that bed. I forgot to add that. So if I have a choices for care voucher, okay, that's the other added language in there. But my bigger point is if the state says to you that you have a place to go and you choose not to go, then they can, blacklist you for anywhere from 30 days to 6 months, and of course you have your fair hearing rights. As I said, I've run into this recently with somebody who called me, said they told me I have to go to the shelter, and I told them I had a doctor's exemption. They still told me that I have to go to shelter, and unfortunately, I don't think the lawsuit is going to help this individual. That settlement where they have to give notice, I think one of the problems with this is simply put that they found a place and that this person is expected to go. And this is the kind of nuances that us advocates, us street outreach deal with on a daily basis. The folks affected deal with on a daily basis. So I just want to kind of lay that out there for folks as we go forward in this time. And I wanted to exit tonight with something that's been really challenging one day it was challenging this week. So I had someone ask me, and it isn't the first question I've been asked since January about this, but and I don't do politics. This is more of a experience. So as an outreach worker, peer support, or outreach outside, it isn't uncommon for me to run into an individual or two who will ask me, Zach, um, about this big, beautiful bill I keep hearing about in Washington. Am I going to lose my Medicaid? My answer um, is I don't know, and that's kind of the most foolish answer that I can come up with. But it's because of this uncertainty. Nobody knows, and um, it's um, it's like a guessing game right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty to it, and very polite with people, of course, but I want to say that the uncertainty is very difficult. Um, some of the uncertainty that you don't have to be uncertain about, however, is that, and I think I talked about this or didn't talk about it, but I believe a week and a half ago, the Vermont State Housing Authority issued a letter out to providers indicate and to participants of certain voucher programs that those were frozen until further notice. And what does that mean? That means that they didn't have money or they're uncertain about where this is going, so they've frozen these vouchers. And we're talking about Section 8 and all that. That's only for the Vermont State Housing Authority right now. I haven't heard that of the other ones as of this point. But what you can probably expect is more filter down effect. Some other things you don't have to be uncertain about, and I don't mean to put it this way, is there's word that the Northland Job Corps program up in Virgins has been closed or will be closed. And so these things are starting to hit home. And we are, you do see grants and other things, not grants, but different monies being canceled or attempted to be canceled. So these are things you don't have to be uncertain about. But the big, beautiful bill, yes, that is uncertain right now. We know what we know is it will affect people if it passes. And that's a given. We just don't. I don't think we really know the how bad. So I'm not confident answering someone's question about that. And it's hard because I'm sure this person's feeling very uncertain, just like the rest of us. Okay, folks, I think we're going to be successful tonight in this broadcast. I will be back here on Sunday evening. I know usually I do it on Sunday evenings, but this show was a makeup show. I thank you for joining me tonight, particularly with Tasha on the chat briefly, as it was. And folks, I'm Zach Hughes from here in a smoky, hazy Montpelier, Vermont tonight. Wishing you a wonderful night and urging folks to be cautious out there this evening and into tomorrow, probably some point tomorrow. If you have a hard time breathing, probably want to stay inside or use a mask going out. There is a wildfire smoke in the area, but I'm wishing you well tonight. I'm Zach Hughes, and you know what? It's time for me to get out of here. Okay.